drinking the coffees now. Says we are live. We are live. Hey guys,
Nice.
happy Labor Day, guys. And we don't have a special guest today, but I think between myself, Ethan, Skipper, Ed, and Susie Q, that we can entertain questions and talk about most any fish topic between us.
Can we?
Not find out. I think we can. I think we can. We can even talk a little about reptiles and, whatever you guys want to talk about. So, audio and video is good. Let's see. I always hate to be the one to welcome people because I seem like I take forever. All right. There's Maria, Jimmy P, on the Oscars, Taylor's Aquatics, Scott's Aquatics, Skull Aquatics, Ray Aquatics, Mike Aquatics and Things. Scroll. Lucas is New Austin. S. Michelle Kenzie. I started to say Tata. Let's see. Who else? Maybe everybody. I'm getting down there. Cindy Dowdy. Oh, guys, Maria, if you don't mind, if you'll post the link that Sandy's got for the GoFundMe, for the shelter. She's already sent in some money, but we're still fundraising for that. It's the Port of Laura, whatever, shelter, the PCA there that she volunteers at.
Nice.
Jenny Lynn, Michael Law. Is there anybody?
Did you say Michelle McKenzie?
I probably didn't. Well, I did there. I probably didn't.
She actually, and thank you, Michelle, for the super chat. She actually had a good question in my stream.
It's where that
what was that
super chat?
She has a bunch of 3-month-old cribs.
Nice.
Well, she thinks they're sick. She thinks it might be because of overcrowding, and I said about splitting them up so you can really focus on what you got.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think because you're more seasoned fish keepers than this fella is.
Well, how many and size tank and what symptoms?
Yeah. How big are they at 3 months? Like, how much food are you feeding, I guess? Because I've had when I've raised cribs, I've had them be like that big at 3 months, and I've had them be like that big at 3 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I've got some from Robert Tennessee Aqua that I brought. It's like week-old things, and like you said, I've got some that are tiny, and then some that look like they're about to. The mother killed the dad when I brought them here, so she's waiting on her husband. Yep, she's waiting on her husband.
She said my husband just brought them home, so we don't really know.
Oh, so you don't even know the history behind them?
Yeah, she said these are new to me. Well,
how big is the tank?
When all else fails, big water changes.
Yeah, water changes and pre-cycled media. So, Mr. Skippy, I did have a question while you were gone before. Behind you in your tank, is that Val or Crinum? Because it's usually covered by your back, I guess, and I didn't know what it was because it's far away.
It's both.
Oh, it's both.
Wow.
Oh, nice. I saw some strands that were really skinny and some that were a little wider, and I was wondering.
Oh, this is new to me. Yeah, it's both.
Oh, look.
They're
That's
side
pretty.
by side, and then there's some over there.
There's Crinum, yeah.
That's a
very,
Crinum
very
there.
pretty. Very pretty.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Ginger. Hey, Pam.
Yeah. I was trying to tell which one it was.
Well, you were right.
It's still dragging home.
Nice.
Yeah, I got those plants from KJE Aquatics.
Nice. Yes. Gotcha. They're very pretty.
I get a lot of my plants from him because, well, let's just face it, Petco ain't got the nice looking ones at all.
No.
And they don't get stuff like that in. So
No.
I discovered them on YouTube and found out, hey, this fellow lives up in New York.
Yeah.
Really? KGE, you said?
Yeah.
KJE Aquatics
Yeah.
On Facebook.
on Facebook. Actually,
And
he is setting up a website right now too.
yep.
Oh,
He
cool.
he has it set up because I just ordered some Dr. Bass Clear, 4 different types of that fish food on there, and I need to open it up and do a review on it.
Oh, look at it. There you go.
Oh yeah. That's a good one.
The reason why I got this one is because he didn't have this one in stock. That's what I think this tank on.
Yeah.
North Fin. Yeah.
Yeah.
They like
So I
that.
figured I'd just give this a try. It's
So
crazy.
yeah.
Whenever you open it up, which I probably won't use it because it's small as hell, but it's a little spoon.
Oh, wow. It looks like what I use my medication for. It's tiny.
Well, that's the doctor for you, I guess.
Yeah.
Huh?
Doug Gray's his customized food. The guppy breeder, Doug Gray, he has a little spoon in his food. I never did see her say the tank size. Did he say that?
She said there's 18 of them, but she didn't say the tank size.
I did that. But
Now, would they be all right in a 20-gallon? I've never had cribs before.
It just depends on. Well, first it depends on the ratio once they reach sexual maturity, which they shouldn't be there yet. At 3 months, I wouldn't think. But what I would say is it would be fine as long as there's not very many other fish and she's doing pretty big water changes. You know, it would be overcrowded, but like I've done that in a store tank and it's been totally fine. You just do more water changes.
She says she doesn't know what it is, the tank.
That's okay. Did she know the measurements? I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, that'll give you a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do the measurements and go on and look it up.
Oh yeah. Ed, it's that big or that big.
Or this big.
I get that at the store all the time. They're like, it's about that big.
Well, she did say that she was splitting them into a 20 and a 10.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that'll
that's
be
good.
really good.
That's
just for trading. That's good though. She got the right idea.
Are they
Yeah.
easy to tell at that age, male from female?
They are really easy to sex early because they get first on their I point like I have a dorsal fin.
Yeah.
On their dorsal, they have.
Maybe you're a fish nerd way.
I know. On their dorsal, they get either the spike or the circle, like most cichlids, and then also the females get that really big pink belly. And males at that age will have a really big pink belly, and then later they kind of fade out. But on the females, you can really, really tell. And then looking at that and the round on the dorsal is really easy. I'd say
cribs good to keep in trios.
No, just
you
like
said the right ratio, but I didn't hear what that was.
So when the problem is you need more females, but even then, if they start pairing off, it's like having rams or really any type of cichlid. They pair off and they kill everybody else.
Oh boy.
Yeah, but if my problem is if you have a lot of males, the males compete anyways. Like not even if they're paired off. So when I say a ratio before they're sexually mature and after they're sexually mature, it becomes worse. But the males will always pick on each other. The females won't until they pair off, and then they are like, "Oh, dude, you want to kill him? I'll help you kill him."
Yep.
Yeah.
So what makes them good fish?
What makes them good fish? They breed like crazy, and they're gorgeous. They're so pretty, and they're cheap. Like if you're buying a blue ram for anywhere from $8.99 to $12.99, depending on like if they're local bred, if you're getting them from the wild or mass breeder or whatever, you're buying a crib that's bred the same way as that ram for pennies on that. I mean, it's $5.99, $6.99 for a cribensis, and then for a pair. Like I sell a pair for $10 because I get so many from local breeders.
I can't even get a pair of guppies for $10.
I know.
Yeah,
that's like Jess from Maine's Tails, Furs and Fins. That kind of happened to her. She got so stinking money on them, she didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah. At least they weren't convicts.
Oh my!
I don't let convicts come into my store. There are a few fish on my do not enter list, and that's one of them. I don't let anybody take them or surrender them or whatever. I say nope, they're not coming in here.
It's
There's
funny you say that.
Yeah.
Because I went to Petco one time and they had adopted like probably a whole freaking family of them.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, that's a pretty cool looking fish." She goes, "Oh, well, that's the convict cichlid." I'm like, "Why is there so many?" That happens. I said, "You can keep it."
You can keep.
They breed in Petco all the time.
Yeah.
Well, my old club used to, like, people would bring in fish to auction at the end, and the convict bag would always have $1 stuck to it. So
you got to pay someone to take it.
You do.
yeah,
You can't
bid
give
that
them away.
$1.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're small and they're mean, and if I put them in a tank, that is their tank now. Like I can't even. It wastes so much space.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations!
Congratulations, Sandy. That's awesome.
Yay.
Stephen, Truth Seeker, says he likes convicts. I actually like them too. I have one big male that was Nathan's, and Anthony in the room, so I'm going to get one of the strains back from him from California. Or not, I didn't send him to him. I'm getting a strain from him that he didn't have room to work with. And Ed, if you're interested in, I'll see what they are and see if you're interested in any of them.
Nope.
Okay, that solved that. But he's sending back the convicts that he has left of Nathan's too. I had sent him like, I don't know, 20 or something. I kept 2 or 3 behind a year or two ago. But anyway, I'm going to have a tank convicts now. So get your convicts here, guys. I just want to keep those fish in the hobbies since they were Nathan's. So.
Oh, I like Maria Z's question.
Maria said, Skipper, go ahead and read it if you want.
Yeah, her question is, I just brought in 21 tiny Bosemani rainbows from an outside tub. Should I treat them for parasites before putting them in a tank?
I can tell you what I've done with all my fry from outside is they stay in a tank with only my outside fish. And I do that for about 6 months. So I even bring the plants that are outside in the tub in with them. If they're substrate out in the tub, I bring that, and that becomes their aquarium. At first, it's real mucky. It's pond, basically. And then I slowly, through water, change it over to my, but I don't medicate unless I see there's a problem. That's just what I do, though.
Yeah, that's very similar to what I do. If I'm really, this is for any fish. If I'm getting it from a store, if I'm bringing them in from outside, they go through. It's kind of like it's a quarantine, but it's an airlock because you don't get treated in an airlock. You sit there and you see if there's anything wrong with you, and then like you look in the mirrors. Like it's going. I don't know if you all have been to the aquarium, but there's a butterfly room. And there's a room where you look for butterflies on you before you go into the rest of the aquarium. And that's what I like to do. Now, if it's something like tiny Bosemani's that I've bred, I would probably do something that's not very strong first. So like I might do a little bit of salt, or I might do a general cure, or I might do, something that isn't as strong that is just preventative, or I might feed a medication. So like metronidazole with focus or whatever. Just if I'm feeling insecure about it, just to make myself feel better about it. And then if I start to see signs of something, that's when I treat. That's when I do something. And you can do it preventatively. It's not a bad thing to just dose off the bat, as long as you're not dosing like copper off the bat, because that's not to be thrown around lightly. But if you're pre-medicating all your fish like Aquarium Co-op does, it's the Med Trio or whatever, that's not a bad thing. It's just it might be overcautious,
I like what Ethan said about to make yourself feel better, to make himself feel better. And you kind of think back just to basics, where did the water in the tank and the tub come from, and what could have gone in it? I mean, if you've been putting plants from outside from the fish store, but if it's just been water that you ran out of the hose or rainwater, what could possibly be in it, so it's kind of that kind of thing. I like to make myself feel better too. I'm like you, Ethan.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you, I just learned something because I actually got guppies off of Maria, and I put them in an outside tub because I was kind of wondering that myself.
Yep.
Funny, we was talking about Jess, and then she appears. That's creepy.
Isn't that creepy?
She is creepy.
You can't blame that one on Siri.
No, no, you can't.
If you guys don't know, I'm going to do a shameless plug for Jess and Rocco. They have that morning show at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. Eastern time. She's in Central, so I always get it mixed up. But anyway, they have a great show on the mornings, and they're actually building the content on that. And I am proud to be a new sponsor on there. I'm going to be sponsoring the coffee mug time, and my mug will be there Tuesday just for Rocco. So.
And
That's awesome.
I can tell you, Susie, that she would love for you to be a guest on her show.
Yes,
I
she
would be
would.
honored. I would be honored. Are you kidding?
They have an awesome show, Susie.
But this is what I look like at 9 a.m. Is that okay?
You look fine.
Well,
This
it's 10 a.m. our time, Susie.
Oh, you got it
A little
already.
better.
Okay.
I still look like this at 10 a.m.
Yeah. It's funny because at 6 a.m.
Last night, Ed.
6 a.m. I'm out with the chickens and the tortoises for about a good 2 hours.
How many people can you hear say that? At 6 a.m. I go out, I feed my chickens, I feed my tortoises.
Yeah, it's my quiet time.
Right.
And I come into hectic parrots. Chaos.
And I agree with what Mike's saying there too. We were talking about using medications and stuff, and that's very true what he says.
Yeah,
Too
willy-nilly.
much thrown around. Yeah, for sure.
Florida Fish Rescue had a good comment too, because
There
I
you
do
go.
automatically medicate anything that I know is wild.
Yeah, prone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he said puffers.
Yeah.
And I will say, every single time I get Amazon puffers, it's about a month of like prosequential or a different dewormer. Sorry, I had a notification. Or a different dewormer that goes through them to get rid of that, because you know that they're going to have it. Like, it's different when you know a fish is really prone to something. Yeah. Or like you get a go.
When you say prone, will you elaborate on that? I know what you mean.
Oh, like prone to something. So like I get yo-yo loaches and striata loaches, and almost every single time I get them, they have internal parasites. Or like the Amazon puffers, they almost always have internal parasites, and I would even bargain to say they always have internal parasites, and that's just from fish that are more wild caught than tank raised. And even tank raised fish, like some of the stuff that's tank raised almost always comes in with what's another one? I have a supplier who always, I don't get from them anymore, but I used to have to treat for bacterial infections on bettas all the time, because for some reason these people could not keep bettas correctly enough to keep fin rot off of them. Wow. And I would have them already with bacterial infections, and then I couldn't sell them for 2 weeks because I had to treat them to get the bacterial infection gone, and then they had tattered fins by the end of it. It was awful, so I had to find someone new. But stuff like that where they're prone to it, like that 80, 60, however many, if it's over, even for me, if it's over 40% of the time they get this thing, I'm going to treat for it before they, get sold or go into my system or whatever,
Even the smallest ones, like the pea puffers, all of mine.
Always. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And it's ridiculous.
Another thought I was having about that, it's back and forth. So you guys, I'm sure, have heard this and read it and researched it too, but it changes every few years. The fish that are prone to parasites, and those fish that are bottom feeders or eat inverts and stuff like that, they really seem to be much more because of what they eat, the position they go ahead.
It's kind of like how somebody, you can look at people that are just, you think as being the dirtiest people, and they never get sick. It's because they have like all of the antibodies for all of that stuff. It's the same thing for bottom feeders. They're designed to eat stuff like that, eat all the gross decaying stuff on the bottom that stuff will be on. So they've had all this time to develop their immune systems over generations and generations and generations to eat this gross decaying stuff, versus like a rainbow fish that eats bugs off the top of the water, or it's yeah. And you also have to think that a lot of the stuff that plagues our tanks in our fish tanks are things that in the wild, like the ick parasite. The ick parasite is in the wild. It did not come from captivity. Now, is it worse in captivity? Absolutely, because that parasite drops off the fish and then spreads and then gets on other fish. But in the aquarium, it's terrible because there's nowhere for that parasite to go. There's also nowhere for that fish to go. In the wild, that fish swims upstream, and then the parasite drops off. The fish keeps swimming. The parasite goes back downstream, and it's very. There's stuff like again, internal parasites. You have the parasite, it passes the eggs or whatever to spread on, but in a fish tank, it gets right back in the fish.
Yeah.
And then even with bottom feeders, like bottom feeders are then eating it out of the gravel. It's there's nothing to. And then people that don't do water changes, like that's why people get bacterial infections when water gets really dirty, because in the wild there's constantly it's pretty much constant water change because it's flowing downstream or whatever. Yeah, with rain, with stream, you're getting water from upstream and all the waste is getting washed down, and it all has somewhere to go, except for like what I tell people a lot of the time is like, look at the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea does not have an outlet, and nothing lives in the Dead Sea because there's no outlet. There's no water changes happening in the Dead Sea, so nothing can live. It just built up and built up and built up.
The
and
TBS is probably like.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine. I would love to do that. That sounds like so much fun. But no, it's what do we say? What did this come from? Being prone? Anyways, yeah.
Well, Lumpy Dog has a good point when he talks about Pimafix and Melafix, because I kind of look at that like the holistic remedy.
Yeah.
Which is tree oil and snake oil or whatever. But I like using that if raising the temperature, salt, and some other natural remedies don't work. I'll go to that next. Only because I'm not that I'm anti-medication, but I like that as my last resort.
Well, and there's less strain on the fish when you use natural stuff. So when I use medications when they're prone to it, or when the other stuff didn't work, because you run the downside. Of course, the upside is that you fix the problem, but the downside is that you are stressing the fish out by having that medication in the water. Because I tell my customers that anything in that water, think of it like temperature to a fish. You are how I cannot feel the pH of my blood or whatever, but a fish can feel and sense the pH in the water, and it's more stuff like that, like nitrate, like anything that is super different. I tell them to think of it as they would think about temperature. Do you want to go from 30 degrees to 105 degrees, just walk through a door and have that change? It's, I don't know. Yeah.
Ed, I cut you off a while ago. Do you remember what you were going to say?
Oh, I was going to ask about puffers. I was just going to say, do you treat them once a year also? Like once you've got them, do you?
I do
puffers
mine
ever
every
get
six. I do mine every 6 months, fresh and salt. But that's just for me primarily.
Yeah, and I think that's again making yourself feel good about it as well. Because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll wait until they see signs, and that works for a lot of people. But then there's other people, because puffers are a wet pet. I mean, they are the most personable, cute, heckin' things that you'll ever see. There was a Mekong puffer that I had in the store for like 8 months, and I dewormed him 2 times while he was with me, because I loved that thing so much and I didn't want it to die. Like, he didn't even show signs the second time, and I was like, let's just do this just in case, and it made me feel good about keeping my buddy alive. So I think you can do it either way. I think you can get on a schedule with it and just do it every once in a while to keep him safe, and then you can also look for signs, But it's however somebody wants to do it. There's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a million ways to keep fish.
So Stephen Truthseeker has a point, but I don't know if it's accurate or not. So I would love to have everybody's feedback. If you have a tank that's fully cycled, and let's just say beyond that it's well balanced, there's no need to do a water change, just top off? Have you ever heard that?
Okay, so there is one customer that I have that does this, and it's because he has a large biological filtration. He has a huge canister full of lava rock. I think 2 of them on a 75, and then on top of his regular filtration, and then he keeps a lot of plants that export that nutrients out of the water. The other thing with that is that it's just like a water change. Instead of taking nutrients out by diluting the sample of water, the plants are taking that in, and you are trimming the plants out. So your nutrients are turning into plants, and you're taking plants out. But here's the other issue with that is that his pH, he hasn't done water change for 3 years. His pH is at I think it's low 6s. And in Chattanooga, our pH in our tap water and the pH that I keep it at the store is like 7.4, 7.6. Because I want any fish that I sell, anybody in the area, I want to be able to keep that fish. And if somebody wants to keep it at a different pH, they need to gently take it down or take it up from there. But here's my thing is that you can do crushed coral in the water to keep your pH up or whatever. But unless you are keeping the correct filtration or keeping plants, if your nutrients keep building up, if you add fish to that tank or your fish that are in there, it's not a sustainable way to keep them. But if you were to add fish from my tank into a tank where you haven't done water changes in even a year, and you've just let your nutrients build up, and there's no plants that are taking it out, and there's no filtration that's taking it all out, because there's, of course, filtrations that will gas off nutrients, but then you have the problem of making that airtight and then it going back in the water, which was what my customer was having trouble with, and that's when I told him to add plants, and that solved his whole problem. But sorry, I was going somewhere with that. But if you have all of the right stuff going on and you already have all the fish that you want to add to the tank, absolutely. There's definitely ways that you don't have to do water changes. But in my opinion, for the basic tank, you should be doing water changes.
Right. I agree.
Does he talk with RO or tap water? Because that does make a difference.
Yeah, tap water.
It has to be tap water, right? Because you kind of need the minerals, otherwise you're going to lose your hardness.
Right.
Well, that's like runners that drink too much RODI water. Did you see that a few years ago when that was a trend? Runners were drinking too much RODI water, and it was pulling nutrients from their body. They were they were peeing out their nutrients because the RODI water would go in, suck out some nutrients, and then they'd pee it out.
That's why awful. I don't run. Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
Stephen, I see Stephen P saying that he feels bad. He's sick. So hope you feel better, Stephen.
Feel better.
And he's also
a question about salt water. Did you see that? I thought you put it up on the screen.
I may have.
Salt water?
Letting people read comments.
Florida Fish Rescue said saltwater tanks and never, ever, ever water change. Deep substrate planted tanks, I rarely water change. Tanks with sumps, I almost never water change.
To your point, what you were saying. Okay. That makes sense.
That's interesting with the saltwater tank.
I top mine off every other time with tap water, of course, dechlorinated, pH adjusted.
Yeah.
Every other time I do a water change.
I think it always depends. Here's the biggest thing about water changes, and here's the biggest thing about a tank, is like if somebody came into my store and asked me the same question, like, do I have to do water changes and how often should I do water changes? I would ask them, what are you planning on keeping? Because even in saltwater, like if you have an Acropora tank or if you have like a SPS dominant tank, I don't keep fish in my SPS tanks. And that's mainly because, and SPS means small polyp stony coral. And it's because they're a shallow water coral that doesn't like a whole lot of nutrients. They like a lot of flow. They like a lot of light. But at the top of the water column, there's not a whole lot of nutrients in the ocean. So when you introduce them to a tank that has a lot of nutrients or is building up with a lot of nutrients, most of the time they die because they don't like even to the point where like mine started bleaching when it got over 40 one time, 40 ppm nitrate, which is insane. Like when you talk about that for freshwater, some people have 80 to 160 nitrate. And like for something to start completely like dying, like overnight dying at 40 ppm, it's crazy. So I would always say that it just really depends on the situation and what your filtration is, what your water volume is, how many fish you have. It's really all situational because there's a million ways to do it.
Oh, Steven's not sick. I misread that. Okay.
I'm glad he's not sick.
But he did say that he was just now releasing another music video, another song that he wrote. So check that out. P-Dog says if you have planted tanks, water change to maintain whatever nitrate level you're comfortable with. Some of my tanks are every other week. Some tanks are every few months, right? Let the tanks do that work. Yep.
Well, and the other thing about like water changes is it gets you in the tank to do other maintenance, you know, like wiping out or trimming plants or, you know, it just keeps you. And for me, I enjoy water changes because it makes me enjoy every single tank that I have, which is why I don't plan on having automatic water changes at the store. Would it save me a ton of money? Absolutely. But I would.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Well, I just did a video on it, but my python over the 4 years, because I was using a net to catch anything coming out of the python.
Yeah.
But apparently the sand dust has built up over the 4 years, and there's about a 3 to 4 inch cement blockage in my pipes. So now I tried to do it using my hose outside. I will never do that again.
Wow.
When I was done with that, I was ready for a nap, and that was one tank. So Greg Jones suggested I use the blue bonded filter on the bottom of a colander, because I don't ever want that to build up again.
Filter
and I really
padding,
thought
yeah.
the shrimp net was working well, but it took 4 years
It was
to catch
great
up with me.
seeing them. It was great seeing Greg Jones in your
I
stream.
know. I haven't seen him in almost a year. I was so good to see him.
That was a treat. It really was. Oh, there's Supreme Aquaria,
Well-
also known as Supreme. You had as a guest,
Molly.
didn't
Yeah,
Molly.
Supreme Gecko.
you? Yeah.
When I do my water changes, I have a rolling, like I think it's a 35-gallon trash can.
Uh-huh.
Like a
Big,
brute.
right? And it's got like 5 or 6 wheels it's on.
Right.
And I don't ever put, my Python is only water in, and then I use 2 different like vacuums. Actually just bought one from Ethan a week ago. A big vacuum to help suck the stuff out.
Where's
and-
it powered from?
You just have a little squeeze pump and you go squish, squish, and then it comes out.
Yeah.
And like,
Oh, okay.
I'll put, if I've got a lot of fry, I put pantyhose over it. So that way I'm not catching my fry. Like when I was doing the ponds for the hurricane, I just put fish nets because I wasn't even going to spend time hooking up my pantyhose. But but then I take all that water and I dump it on the roses or the garden
Plants,
area.
yeah.
So yeah, I always am throwing it out there. I figure this side of my yard, one of these days it's going to look so much better than this side. Because when I've watered everything in this area, then I just open the side of the fence and I dump it, and I just gonna have one beautiful chunk of grass going downhill.
Yeah. Stephen makes a good point. Think about Hunger Guru had a video and he's talking about how most people really don't have a full cycle aquarium, and that does happen. It really does. And I just want to clarify about Ed's pantyhose. I think maybe get the right idea.
Listen, I was being nice. I wasn't going to say nothing.
I
am being nice. He only uses those. He and James use for bank heists. That's the only thing they're used for.
Right. That's
Hey,
what
you're going to get
James
Wally
use
in
them for.
trouble because he's going to steal his wife's pantyhose now.
Uh-oh.
Man, not a good
Well,
idea.
you can get them at the dollar store.
Oh, is that where you get them?
Yeah, you can get and
That's an appropriate.
it comes with 2 legs, so you get to chop 2 out.
Oh, cool.
So it's like 50 cents a hose. It's great.
So what's your favorite brand?
I try to find the like the biggest hole possible, like so it's not too tight. I don't know. I'm not saying the terminology right, but
Any special color, Ed?
no. I just want maximum suckage.
Gotcha.
Oh, nice.
Moving on. Moving on. Let me see if there are any questions.
Are there any
out
fish
here.
questions, please?
Please.
Well, we can really
Shit,
think
yes,
it's a rabbit hole.
I did get some new fish recently, and I made a little video about it. It's like 10 minutes long and a bunch of rambling like usual. No editing, but yeah, I did get some recently. I did. After I hit you, Ethan, then I went over a few days later and hit Rob. So all over the place. What kind of live stream is this? We're still trying to decide, Stephen. Hang in there.
Dank Tank says if it ain't Max, it's wax.
But I also use the pantyhose. You can throw your crushed coral in there and then tie it off.
I
Oh,
use
yeah,
that
yeah.
with my crushed coral too. I tried it with my peat moss and it didn't work so well.
Oh,
It was a big mud mess.
Yeah, peat moss is too fine or too messy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Diego went there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I did it before I said it, so there you go. Ed wants to be able to. What? All right, guys. Any fish questions?
Yeah, I was about to say.
Please.
So now you said about the peat moss. Could you use cheesecloth?
Pardon me?
When you said about the peat moss, could you use something like
Cheesecloth,
or
yeah.
cheesecloth?
Oh, yeah.
You can.
I didn't even think about that.
Smaller holes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I used for my siphon entrance. I said it earlier, but everyone else was talking as well. So, yeah, it's you can just wrap it around. It's really
Okay.
nice.
I gotta have to get some of that.
Yeah. Also, I think I think it's embarrassing to go to the checkout with pantyhose personally, but that's just me.
Just wear a name tag that says bank robber.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem.
embarrassing if it's for sale.
Or you ask them where the Regions Bank is. You're checking out while they scan the pantyhose. You're like, hey, do you know where the Regions Bank is?
There you go. Ed, you need to do a live stream about the uses you have for pantyhose, like one of yours.
I don't want to
artsy,
see that.
crafty.
No.
I'm sure I've used them on a live stream before. I have and I did a whole bunch of ways to use pantyhose for my tubs earlier this year, and I never edited the whole thing together and put it out.
You should. That would be an amazing video.
That would be a
It
great
really
idea.
would.
I also have like my fish,
I got a really good thumbnail for you to use.
my pumps that like do a little sprinkle at the top. They pull the water. Well, I also put pantyhose around those just as an extra precaution to keep the fish from getting sucked into that.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has used them in streams before. We can only see from here up, though.
This stream just went to hell.
I know, right? So fast.
And Ed, you're taking it very well. Sitting there with your little smirk. I love it.
Thumbnail. I used a fish today. I didn't do anything but put a picture, which is the usual, on the thumbnail, thinking that might inspire some discussion or questions or something. Ethan knows what the fish is because I took the picture of his store.
I didn't even see the thumbnail.
I didn't see it.
It's the one we were trying to figure out the other day. The nice lady.
Oh,
and
yeah. Yep.
And then Dan has them for sale, and he calls them extremely rare, I think.
Well, I've got a bunch of them.
Yeah, you do. They
Golly.
came in with Congo Tetras.
Congo Tetras, and there was only in that shipment, there was only one Congo Tetra in that bag, and the rest of them were those ones. And I was like, huh. They don't even. I mean, their eyes are the only thing that looks. Their eyes and like their face structure is the only thing that makes them look kind of like a Congo tetra. But yeah,
You know, I
everything
heard
else is different.
yesterday
Yeah.
that Congo tetras love duckweed.
I've had them eat it. Yeah, I think it's just fish that are big enough to eat it. Because like I've had angelfish eat it. I've had, anything that is big enough to eat duckweed will eat duckweed because it's small and it floats on the top of the water.
Lumpy Dog, I wasn't going to say anything because I don't want to show my age and I don't want anyone saying, who's that?
Same, Susie.
Oh, good name.
It just make the thumbnail in the pantyhose. It'll go viral.
Oh, it will.
Just one leg into the frame.
Or 10 ways I use pantyhose. That's all you got to do.
Oh my gosh.
That's it.
You'd get a whole different audience.
Yeah.
I don't think you want that.
It's all about subs, man. It's all about subs.
That's right. That's right.
So I think Sherry has a real good fish question.
Bring it on, please.
Because we
Awesome.
talked about it really quickly, and we talked about it because we all knew where we were headed with it. But for somebody who hasn't done water changes in a couple of weeks, 1 or 2 times, and their fish got sick, like how are we saying that you can not do water changes? So, like, can you explain that in a little bit more depth? How the balance in the aquarium would stay there if you didn't do water changes?
So, like I said, there's a million ways to skin a cat, and there's a million ways to take care of an aquarium. Not doing water changes, you have to do so much other stuff to be able to do that. It's remineralizing. It's finding a different way to export your nutrients, meaning plants or gassing off in the substrate, like using a deep substrate with what's the other kind of bacteria? I'm trying to think of the name.
Sio something.
It's
Beneficial bacteria.
It's beneficial, but it's aerobic, anaerobic, but I can't remember which one is the one that grows in the substrate. I am totally blanking.
And
Anaerobic.
in the substrate. Yeah.
Anaerobic goes underneath.
Aerobic consumes oxygen.
Oxygen.
And
Anaerobic.
it is anaerobic, but I can't remember which one is the one that grows more in a deep substrate tank. But in a deep substrate tank, what a deep substrate does is it grows the type of bacteria that you need to really process that nutrients into a gas, and then it gasses out or even just holds in the substrate. And then people do what's called a substrate replenish. So it's not a water change; you just replenish your substrate. Because there's not an infinite amount of space in the substrate to hold that nutrients, but that works for a lot of people. But there's multiple ways. You just have to find a way to export that nutrients. Because if any system you're just putting in and putting in and putting in, there's the law of equivalent. That's where I should begin. There's the law of equivalent exchange. Either you're going to do one thing or you're going to do another thing. You're not going to get 100% benefit from anything. Like, you're not going to just be able to set up a tank with glow gravel and never have to do a water change ever again, and put 20 fish in there. You're going to have to do something to keep those fish alive. Law of equivalent exchange, you're going to always have to do something to get the thing that you want. And that is, universal. If you don't want to do a water change, you're going to have to find some other way to get that nutrients out of your water. Because water changes take it out by dilution of the water. You're taking out a percentage of that dirty water, putting in clean water. So it takes it from, 100% down to 80% of what it was. But if you have plants, that nutrients is taken up by the plants. You trim the plants, whatever. You just have to find out how many fish you can put in that system depending on how fast those plants grow. Because if your plants grow really, really fast, of course, you can have more fish in that system because it's going to be taking up more nutrients. If you have, like, I get really mad with Scarlet Temple all the time because it's super easy to keep in a tank, but it doesn't grow fast in a tank. So if you had a tank full of Scarlet Temple, you couldn't have as many fish, It's just all finding ways to do the same job and not have to if you don't like doing water changes, find something else that does that for you. or it takes out that nutrients.
Lumpy Dog makes a point there too that goes hand in hand with what you're saying. Lower stocking, heavy planted, light feeding will get you far down the road to less frequent water change. Lower temps too. And then Mike says that with planted tanks, it's trimming plants so they can regrow. For sure.
You know, water changes also help your plants. Like they totally will pearl after you do a water change and stuff. And I love that.
Yeah, it's because you're adding carbon dioxide in the tank. There's more surface agitation. So they take up more, so they're releasing more oxygen.
Looks great.
I don't know if this is good or if it's bad. I have not. I know, right? I have not gravel back this tank since I set it up 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago.
It's not a bad thing if you're doing water changes and it's staying consistent. You know what I mean? Like how do I say that and not make people think that they don't have to gravel vac? if you're not gravel vacking and your nutrients is staying the exact same, I'd say you're fine because you're still taking out nutrients in the water column when you do a water change. You're just not taking it at the source. And that's why I gravel vac, because my nutrients stay lower, because the source of everything, all the nitrate and phosphate that's in the water column is all the big junk that's in your gravel, constantly releasing it. So I take it at the source, while other people can take it just from the water column after it's gone through that process.
Yeah, because in my head, my theory was if I have plants that are rooted, they should be able to take care of a lot of it as opposed to a stem plant.
Well, it'll go right down to them too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I put in my head. And a lot of my plants
are rooted. I see them.
Yeah, I don't have. Sorry, I just about lied to you. There's one tank that I have stem plants in, but all my other tanks are all rooted plants. And I just don't gravel vac because I want them. To me, in my mind, it's food for the plant that's rooted. Yeah. Just like a garden, that's how it's in my head.
Yeah, it's food for them. You just have to. What's different from a garden is that nutrients in a garden stays in the substrate. Nutrients in a tank then gets out in the water column. And in your case, since you have so many rooting plants, it's probably taking care of a lot of it right at the source. And then not very much is escaping. I mean, I can't see how many plants you have, but the val especially. I had a 40 breeder where you could barely see through it. There was so much val.
Wow.
And I never gravel vac that tank because they were taking care of it. You know, it is going to, all that nutrients is going to go down there and it's going to decay and release into nitrates in the water column. But I can take care of that in the water column because a lot of it's being taken care of by the plants down there.
Okay, cool.
There's 16 rooted plants in there. And a new.
I love how you counted them.
I did.
I love that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, there's 16. There's 16 rooted plants in there. There's an Anubis and like Java fern, but that's rhizome. So
yeah,
they help take it out of the column.
Water column, yeah.
Ray's Aquatic says, "How do you feel about underground gravel filters?"
I love it. This one's one.
He has them for sale.
Yeah, I do. I do.
I'm one of those odd people that absolutely love the under gravel tank filters. I have a little Flogo and I do a deep gravel clean, and I haven't changed underneath this in 3.5 years. And you probably can't see what I'm pointing to. This is my blue morai and frontosas, and it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 up valves. Love it. I love it.
Actually, my first tank, I had it, and I didn't know. You know, whenever I was a teenager, I was like, "Oh, that looks pretty cool. It's supposed to help bring the stuff up out of the gravel."
What? That's from my age. I remember when they first came out. I was like, "Oh man, this looks great."
Yeah. I have a love-hate relationship with them because they work. It's just when you have an under gravel filter, especially in a store, and especially like if I like my tanks to look really pretty all the time. Here's what an under gravel filter does. It is purely above anything else, a biological filter, because it pulls everything through your gravel and makes it act like a under gravel filtration. Now, what I don't like about that is that in any other kind of filtration, the way that it is mechanically removing anything in the water column, because there's three kinds of filtration in any tank. There's biological, mechanical, and chemical. Chemical I don't use as much in case, unless there's like an emergency or I'm taking medications out or whatever. But as far as mechanical and biological, the thing I like about most other filters is mechanical is super easy. Like if you have a cartridge or if you have a sponge filter, you take it up, you sponge it out or clean it, you put it back in. For a under gravel filter, if that's the only filtration that you have, the only mechanical filtration you have is your substrate. And if you don't keep a bunch of plants in your tank, so if I'm selling a tank to, the average Joe family that's keeping 2 plants and, just regular gravel, if they have an under gravel filter, they're going to have to do more water changes because everything, instead of being able to take a cartridge out and clean it for all of the clumpy grossness that gets in there, it's all in the gravel all the time, which means more nitrate in the water column, which means more phosphate in the water column, which means usually you would say, let's have more plants. But for the average family, that's most of the time not what they want to do. And it's just, for the average tank, it's not 100% great. But for, I think, most other tank uses, it's fantastic. It's wonderful. For planted tank uses especially.
Under
Hey, see, I
gravel
thought
came
just the
out.
opposite for the planted tanks. I was thinking the planted tanks might actually make it worse because it gets the roots would get down into it.
They do,
Clog
and
it
that
up.
they okay. So they can clog it up, but if you keep your plants sparse, I guess not like a heavily planted tank, but if you keep your plants sparse, it pulls the nutrients right down to them. And as long as you have heavy pumps, the water's always going to make it through the grate, and it's going to just pull the nutrients straight down to the roots of your plants.
That is so funny because all my under gravel filtration is all in my tanks that have no plants in it. Didn't even think of that because I want to get down and clean out the gravel with the hose.
Yeah.
So, and I don't do that with my plants. I like Skipper said, like Skippy said, I like that.
Exactly.
I just hover. But these, I like every time I'll do 1/4 of the tank of a deep gravel. Then the next time I change the water, I'll do this, and I'll do it like that.
Yeah.
And you can see the dirt just coming up.
Just grossness, yeah, because it pulls it all down. Because, like I said, it works for people if they want to do, if you want to do more water changes. But if I'm selling it to a family, it's just not practical for them, I guess.
Or if you have an air-driven fish room and you don't want the sponge filter in certain tanks.
Yeah,
that works. Sorry, Bob.
No, I was just going to make the point that those came out under gravel when I was, I don't know, 10 or 12 or something, a long time ago. And I tried switching to them from the boxes, and it may have been my age. There was no computer, guys, no books. I mean, no access to info. So just instructions on stuff. I tried them, and I hated them, and I've never gone back. I might like them now, you know. But
that makes me wonder if they sell them at ink.
Maria's, they sell them at Petco.
Wow, 4 minutes. That went fast.
That went really quick.
Yeah, she's got us on the stopwatch. Our hashtag's going to be #Bob sent us. So blame it all on me, and we're going to go over to Kenny's next. So blame it on me. Any other questions, or Dr. Stephen under gravel said, yeah, Stephen, that's true. But I didn't know that back then.
So I was going to respond to Geek Boy really quickly. He said, what did he say? Because it's not up there again. I feel sponge filter craze. There it is. Has shown that mechanical filtration is not as necessary. So it's not necessary, but it prolongs your need for other maintenance. So, like for a tank where you're doing water changes, say every 2 weeks to every month, or really, I mean, it really depends on how many fish you have. But a mechanical filter, if you have something that's going to catch all those big chunks that are going to constantly be decomposing and causing nitrates, it just stops you from having to gravel vac as often or, get that stuff out. If you have, I think what the sponge filter thing has proven, is yes, you don't need it as much, but a lot of people that have a whole bunch of sponge filters are doing a lot more plants, because plants have become really popular in the last, how many years has it been? Like 5-6 years that plants have become really popular.
Since LEDs got cheap.
Yeah, LEDs got really cheap.
It changed the whole world.
Yeah, it really did. But yeah, no, I think that it's not necessary. But again, you just have to think about how your tank is set up, I guess.
The checks in the mail, man, said they didn't come out in the 90s. It's been way longer since I was 12.
That's why
That's a good one.
That's why I threw your plug in there. They must sell them at antique shops now too.
Look what Geek Boy says, Bob Sinus. Hashtag Bob Sinus instead of Bob Sinus.
That's what I'm going to do right there.
Bob Sinus.
And Maria, don't forget, Maria's going over there too. She'll get you. Maria.
You better say it too then.
She will. She will. All right, let's get out of here on time because she really gets on me, let me tell you. Guys, you were awesome, and I knew you would be. We didn't have an official guest, but guys, there you go. That's your Sunday night panel, or most of us. Rob had to be off today, but he'll be back next Sunday, and we may have a tour of his place next Sunday. It's up for discussion, so it sounds real promising.
Nice.
So, did Ethan just go? I guess so.
Yeah, I guess he's gone.
He probably hit a button.
He probably did.
Don't get your buttons, man.
Yeah, Ethan said, I'm not staying after talking to them.
I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. Guys, I love you guys. And don't forget to check out these people's channels here because they all are awesome. They all have different types of channels and different content. So go check them out and support them, please. All right. Good night, everybody. And thank you, mods. And thank you for everybody for participating or just listening. Bye.